welcome everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Boruch.
It's great to see most of you, and it's really great to have everybody on this Zoom call, this video conference. And this is Rav Noach Yarseit was yesterday, and today's the day after. And I personally didn't want another Yarseit to go through. I wasn't in Yerushalayim. Nobody did anything, and I just felt really personally I wanted to do something for Rav Noach's Yarseit. I can hear Rav Noach screaming, saying, "What the heck are you going to do? Stop talking about me and do something." So I just like the people on the phone now are Yehuda Pell, Cleveland, me, Aryeh Getz in Baltimore. Kalman Packhouse is visiting his children in Chicago. Erwin Katzoff, Muncie, Shimon Apostor, Yerushalayim. Shalom Schwartz, Yerushalayim. Yehuda Weinberg, Yerushalayim. Yaakov Solomon, Jackson, New Jersey. Yechezkel Zeltzer, Israel. Andy Mensch, Passaic. Eric in Yerushalayim. Chaim Feld in Cleveland.
How come we don't see everyone?
You can't see. On the top right, there's
I see.
View, and just you can do speaker's view or everybody's view. Okay.
Shalom's here. Hello, Shalom. I see Shalom Schwartz.
So I just like to ask Yehuda to say to start off to say a few words, and then Eric to give a short Devar Torah, and then I'm going to leave the floor open to short shares, so to speak, on an insight, a story that you want to tell, some way to give kavod to Rav Noach, a lesson that you want to communicate that you got, you think that other people can get. This is really about having a korsa tov and recognizing the greatness of Rav Noach, and that should be a system. And I just want to welcome Mitch Mandel from Toronto who just signed on. Hi, Mitch. So we're going to start off, Mitch, with volume on the lower left. Check it out. Okay, Yehuda, you're up.
Okay, hi everyone. Actually, I'm in Tel Aviv. You say of Jerusalem, but I'm in Tel Aviv. I just walked out from the Eish Esther Yeshiva. I teach here once a week, and we had now like an evening. We had evening Leilu Nishmas, my father. David Zirin came and spoke beautiful, and we had very, very nice evening. So I'm still in Tel Aviv. I'll be traveling soon, so I hope it's not going to bother the video. I have to say I'm very humble. Like I'm looking at all the people here, and literally I feel so small. You know, each one and one, unbelievable how big and how great each one of you is. I was telling also here the student when I was also introducing David Ziring, and I said, you know, sometimes growing in a house of 12 children is a disadvantage. You know, it's not just that you have one father and one mother, you know, telling you what to do. You have like a whole group of brothers, of fathers and mothers telling you what to do all day long. And, you know, you could call it a disadvantage, but if you really think about it, it's a very, very big advantage because you get to learn from a lot of people and you get to, you know, get smarter from a lot of people that's around you, and it's a blessing. And for me, the people here and on this video, for sure my older brothers, literally my older brothers, not because they age, but mostly spiritually. Maybe I'm 40 years old, but in comparison, I'm only, you know, maybe 10 or 15 years old, you know, in the wisdom of my father. I'm still learning the wisdom of my father. I'm still trying to understand the wisdom of my father. And every one of you is far, you know, have much more than me. And for me, it's a great opportunity to come and hear and listen and grow, and really to grow from this. So first of all, I really want to thank you. I cannot tell you also, you know, personally that today was a very painful day for me, on ground. On ground, I say, we went up to the caver, the family, we went up to the caver, but usually for the last 8 years, I would always make sure to stay there and wait for the yeshiva to come. And unfortunately, the yeshiva did not come even to the caver today. They tried to put together a van. I was waiting to hear if it happened. I didn't hear, and I just left the Beis HaChaim. And I left my father's caver, and I felt missing. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it could be because it really went out on Shabbos. You could give it a lot of excuses, but the fact is, it was missing for me. So you could just imagine that such a video conference is, very much heart lifting for me, and I want to thank you again for that. So I really don't feel that I'm the one to give even my words in front of all of you, but I think that I would just share, the thoughts that I have very, very shortly, and just one point that makes also this video very, very powerful is, if you think about it, what was the biggest mistake of Paro? Okay, so people say, Paro was arrogant. Paro, he says, let's be smarter than the Jews. There's so many different ways of looking what was the biggest mistake of Paro. I think that the Torah points out what was the biggest mistake of Paro. And the biggest mistake of Paro was that, as the Torah quotes it, it's written, "Vayakam melech hadash b'Mitzrayim, asher lo yada et Yosef." Here it all starts. If there's a new king and he says, "Who is Yosef? I don't know about him," that's the biggest mistake of Paro. Because Chazal tells us that someone that doesn't know to look backwards and to appreciate what other people did for him, he is going to dismiss God. He's going to fight with God. He's going to destroy the world. And that is the first step. The first step is to stop and think, where did we come from? Who gave us life? Who gave us wisdom? Of course, it's all from Hashem. But we have an obligation to recognize what other people did for us. Like my father would quote about Lavan. It's written about Lavan, it's written, Lavan was such a thief, he was such a liar, he was such a Avodah Zarah, he was a crooked guy. And eventually came one day that Lavan tells Yaakov Avinu, he says, "Oh, I figured it out. God is blessing me." And that should have been a moment of, just a party for Yaakov Avinu. Finally, his father-in-law is becoming religious. He's coming closer to God. And actually, if you see the answer of Yaakov, and Yaakov is saying, no, my friend. I worked hard for this. I worked day and I worked night, and I never bought for you anyone dead. You could see that Yaakov, and for sure Yaakov wanted to be Mekarev, his father-in-law, and he wanted his father-in-law to believe in God. But Yaakov made sure to tell Lavan, if you don't know to thank the people, you don't know what does it mean to thank God. You don't know what's a connection with God if you don't know to thank people. So this is my short words, because I don't think that I have any wisdom to give all of you, but this is my way of looking at it. First of all, seeing how much wisdom my father gave us, how much life, what a big effort he did for all of us to stand wherever we are today, and to thank all of you, because all of you, each one and one of you, has done so much for our organization, for Esha Torah, and I could say also for me, someone directly, many of you directly, but is part of the organization, many more. So this is my opportunity to thank you. And if I may, I want to make an announcement. I'm planning to send an email about this, but I'm making an announcement to this group before I send out the email, is that I decided to create, I don't know what's the right word, so don't take me, on the word exactly, just the idea. I decided to create an entity, an idea, a responsibility, I call it, and it's called the Rabbi Noach Heritage Foundation. And the purpose of it is to really focus on my father's wisdom, and the stories that all of you carry with yourself. Because if those stories changed your life, it's going to change other people's life. And if those classes changed our life, it's going to change other people's life. And we have to make sure that this is going to stay for generations to come. So, Bezrat Hashem, I'm just starting. I don't know exactly even how to do it, and I'll be happy to hear from anyone how to really build it. But the concept is, we're going to have a Rabbi Noach Weinberg Heritage Foundation, that the focus will be is how do we bring this to the next generation? How do we make this stronger? How do we invest in it? And as a natural partners, all of you here is my natural partners. So I'm looking forward to really hear from everyone.
Thank you, Yehuda Hatzlacha, Rabbi, on the new endeavor. Okay, I asked Eric to give a short Devar Torah, and then whoever wants to have a chance to speak is going to have a chance. Whoever wants to listen can listen. I want to welcome Eliezer Shradrin from Passaic, who joined us. Hi, Eliezer. Okay, Eric, you're on. Eric.
Yeah.
You're
ready?
On. Yep.
Okay. Well, shkoyach Boruch for organizing this. I mean, for me personally, one of the main ways I appreciated the Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal was that he was really a wise man. And I think that one of the most powerful messages he gave me, he gave all of us, he gave Eshet Torah, he gave the world, is the concept of Torah's Chaim, that he understood that life is a science, and the Torah really is the textbook with all the concepts that a person needs to master every component of life. And that's a very precious gift, because it really it gives a person such a meaningful definition and way of relating to Torah that it's very powerful on a personal level, and it really is the fabric of what builds Torah and what really builds Eshet Torah's impact on the Jewish world through Kiruv. So I'll just offer you one idea from last week's Parsha, and I think that it also in many ways underscores the Rosh Yeshiva's understanding of Kiruv. The Rosh Yeshiva used to quote the Rambam. The Rambam says at the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, he gives a very interesting history lesson about how Avodah Zarah developed. He talks about Enosh being the first one to make a mistake, and the whole world was plunged into darkness. And Avraham Avinu came along, Yitzchak, Yaakov Avinu, the Torah was spread, and then he ends off by saying things continued in this positive vein for a while, and then what happened? Said until the days were lengthened of the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, and they learned from their actions of the Egyptians to worship idols, like them. Shevet Levi remained in Goshen. Shama the mitzvahs avos, they remained steadfast in the mitzvahs of their forefathers. Shevet Levi avodah zarah, and Shevet Levi never veered from the path of Torah, and they never worshipped avodah zarah. But nonetheless, the Rosh Yeshiva pointed out, the Rambam continues, Ukimat kat hayam. It was just a moment before the Iker Sheshasu Avram, right, and that the principle that Avram planted in the world, Nekar, it would be uprooted from the world. V'chazu ben Yaakov l'tau sa'amim and the children of Jacob, of Yaakov, would go back to the mistakes, and the whole Jewish people would be lost, and only out of the Havas Hashem, Hashem's love for Klal Yisrael, did he redeem the Jewish people. So Rosh Yeshiva asked, you just finished saying that Shevet Levi remained in Goshen, Shevet Levi remained loyal to Torah, Shevet Levi never worshipped the Avodah Zarah. Why then are you saying that the Jewish people will be, at the very least, you have a remnant that was loyal? Why wasn't that enough to keep Klal Yisrael intact? Or why not build from Klal Yisrael, from Shevet Levi? Why wasn't Shevet Levi enough to begin with? And so he answered that's the whole point. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a special relationship with Klal Yisrael, with Am Yisrael. It's not sufficient that one chelik of Klal Yisrael is committed to Torah and is performing the mitzvahs in a praiseworthy way. That's not the point. When Hashem looks at that Klal Yisrael, he's looking at the whole people, and the din is on the whole people, and therefore the fact that there's only a small percent that was loyal, that was not enough to save Klal Yisrael. And therefore, the only reason why in the end they were saved was really out of Hashem's love for Klal Yisrael and the haftacha that He gave of Ram Avinu and the other avos. The thing is that we have to understand that the relationship is between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. It's not between Hashem and the Haredi community. It's not between Hashem and the Frum community. There's a totality. There's 50 million Jews in the world, and the relationship of Klal Yisrael to Kadosh Baruch Hu is defined by where the people are, not by where a segment of the people are. And this was really this idea was really the Rosh Hashanah's appreciation that he looked outside of his Dalet Amos, he looked outside of the world he lived in, he looked outside of even the success that was happening in the yeshiva world, and he realized that there's a tremendous tragedy taking place, that all of Klal Yisrael is in a sakana, despite the fact that there may be tremendous growth in the frum world. That's not good enough to really save Klal Yisrael. There's a tremendous sakana. He has to do something, and that his relationship to Kiruv was not to save Yechidim, but along this of really trying to save Klal Yisrael. And he did so in the way of Mitzrayim, that by giving them a connection to Yiddishkeit, by giving them what he called Jewish pride, Jewish identity, in the same way that the Klal Yisrael was saved because they held on to the Jewish identity in Mitzrayim, that was the effort that he was trying to incorporate back in the Jewish people, because his effort was trying to save Klal Yisrael. So he wasn't focused on Shomer Shabbos, because he knew that the amount of resources and time that would take to make individual Shomer Shabbos was too intensive, and that to save Klal Yisrael, you didn't need to make everybody Shomer Shabbos. You had to get them committed to be members of Jewish people, whatever that means. We can talk about another time. But he wanted to build what he called Jewish pride, because his focus was on changing Klal Yisrael. And even though today there's many, many people involved in Kiruv, and Kiruv has become a cottage industry, the Rosh Hashiva is still unique in these 2 points. One is that he's really thinking and how to save Klal Yisrael, and his strategy was to develop within Am Yisrael a commitment to Yiddishkeit that would be deep enough that would be reason to save Klal Yisrael, even though it did not necessarily mean that all of them would become Shomer Torah and mitzvahs. So that's one idea from the Parsha the Rosh Hashiva would tell over. I think it gives an insight both into the Rosh Hashiva's commitment to Klal Yisrael, his appreciation that it's Klal Yisrael you have to worry about, and what he undertook to do, and the way he tried to accomplish that.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it very much. Some people have to leave a bit early, so and Aaron Hoff was supposed to join, but he was not able to. He just wanted to let everybody know that on Shabbos, he talked a lot about Rav Noach's legacy and what we need to do for those values that he all taught us. He asked me to communicate that. Aryeh Getz, you're up because you have to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd just like to ask everybody to keep it short and sweet if possible.
Okay.
We have a lot of people.
Thank you, Boruch, for organizing this shayach to everybody. It's been a long time since I've been connected to some of you, man, and it's just such a pleasure to see faces and some gray beards. For those who don't know me, Aryeh Getz, I was at Yeshiva Torah 1976 to 1986, almost 10 years, and I did a lot of different things there. It was very foundational to my life. The Rosh Hashiva is very dear to me to this very day, to this very moment. Just one brief thing that when I left, I got into housing and community development, but I live in Baltimore, and it happened to be that in the years 2010 to 2013, they opened a Jewish recovery house, and they were looking for, they weren't really looking, but they needed a rabbi to help them. So I volunteered to be the rabbi of the Jewish recovery house. They had a men's location and a women's location, and my wife Bracha, who's the author of about 30 some odd children's books, was working with the women. And for those 3 years, I began to teach everything that Rav Noach taught me. It really brought me really back closer to the Rosh Hashiva in a way that it was so beautiful, and it was so foundational. And because these men who were recovering from drug and alcohol addiction, they knew one thing, that they were trying to use the 12 steps to do teshuvah, really. They really had to change their life, because literally their life depended on it. And it made me realize that that was my life too. My life depended on doing teshuvah in the way that I did it, and that Isha Torah was. And Rav Noach Weinberg, my Rabbi, was the person who was behind all of that, and I'm eternally grateful.
Thank you, Aryeh Getz. Good to see you, Aryeh. Aryeh is in Baltimore, and I'd just like to welcome Aryeh Pomensky, who just came on. Hi, Aryeh. Good to see you. I'd like to share a story that had an impact on me. I haven't told this to many people, that when Rav Noach was sick and he was in New York, he was pretty sick. He was going to Sloan Kettering. Yehuda was there a lot. And Yehuda was doing a lot of really helping Rav Noach. He couldn't sleep in a bed. Yehuda went to buy a chair. He used to sleep in the office. He couldn't sleep in a bed because he was in a lot of pain. And he didn't want to go back to Israel to get treatments at the beginning, because he said that the care is better in New York, even though they care for you more in Israel. But at the end, when the treatment was going to be the same, he went back to Israel. And I used to hang out in Rav Noach's office. I just wanted to spend time with him. And two things happened. When he was in a lot of pain, I said, that's it. Rav Noach is finished. Nothing, that's it. He can't really function. And then we got a tip that we should go to a physiatrist. We went to a physiatrist, and he did a bunch of treatments. We went with Rav Noach's sister, Colleen, and he gave me treatments. Rav Noach went back to the office, slept for an hour, and he was like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. Boom, boom, boom. It was like a train, that was stopped. And you remove the block, and boom. It was just amazing. But then when Rav Noach left to go back to Israel, and it looked like that was going to be the last time he was going to be in New York, I was always wondering, what is he going to do with his stuff? A lot of stuff in his drawers. The offices were, full of bookcases. He had an apartment of stuff. And he told me and Eliezer Shradrin, he said, in my apartment, clean it out. Or if you could take Sfarim, just whatever you want. But when he left the office for the last time, he didn't even look through his drawers, as far as I know. Because I know after he passed away, it was like a mess. It was just like all the stuff was there. He didn't touch anything. He just left. And to me, it just showed you how not connected he was to this world. And when he said that, this world is nothing. You guys got to realize it's all Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it's just nothing. Just realize it's nothing. That he really meant it, and he really lived with that reality. Because when he left, didn't even look through his drawers, just left his stuff, because he knew that wasn't reality. That had an impression on me. Okay, thank you for letting me share that. Does anybody want to volunteer to go next, or should I just pick on people? If anybody wants to, okay, I'm going to go online here. Coleman, would you? You have to unmute yourself, Coleman?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, from my heart, thank you so much, Boruch, for organizing it. Really appreciate it. It wouldn't have happened without you. And secondly, I want to tremendously thank Eric and his brother Nehemiah for bringing Rav Noach to the world with the books that they've done so beautifully. Also, Shimon Apostorf. And thirdly, I want to thank Aaron Dayan, because if he had not, undertaken the the tapes and the audio and the video. You know, we are able to reach hundreds of thousands because of them. Okay, two things. First, when Rav Noach would come to the States, it was so amazing because, like, it was so tough on him. You know, he'd have such clarity of what needs to be done to save the Jewish people. He meet with billionaires that $1 million here is like a penny, and they go through the litany and give him all the excuses that, you know, and it was depressing. So he used to call me for jokes, right? He used to, I mean, you know, he would, and, you know, and then he also had, and I was telling somebody about him, I don't know if you guys know this, but Rav Noach kept in the front pockets of his suit about, an inch and a half on each side, pictures of us and our families. Do you guys know that? Anyway, so, and he would take them out and he'd go through them one by one to, like, connect up with his accomplishments. You know, he talked about Rabbi Weizmandel died a depressed man because he only saved 250,000 Jews, and there were so many Jews he could have saved. But he used to do that. So I told this to a person once, and he said, didn't that weigh him down, you know, having all those pictures in his pockets? I said, Adarabah, it lifted him up. Right? And so I think the lesson from that is that we've got to take pleasure in our successes. There are so many stumbling blocks and quote-unquote failures, and Almighty runs the world. You know, when people would ask me, are you successful as a fundraiser? I'd say I'm always a success. Sometimes I even raise money. And so, you know, that's the attitude we all have to have in life, is that whatever, we've got to do our part. The Almighty runs the world. Whatever success He determines that we're going to have. 3 rules for success: initiative, you got to try; perseverance, you can't stop; and then the third one is the Almighty gives it His blessing. That's what I want to say. I want to say one other thing. You remember Rav Noach's favorite joke? Rav Noach's Boruch? Rav Noach's favorite joke? Rav Noach's favorite joke was about the fellow who worked the graveyard shift, and he'd walk across the cemetery, the shortcut to get home. Moonless night. Unbeknownst to him, they dug a new grave. He falls in. He tries every which way to get out. Can't get out. Finally, after half an hour of trying for footholds, handholds to pull himself out, he sits down. Office. His luck, somebody else did the same thing that he did. Comes along, falls right into the hole, and starts looking for handholds, footholds to get out of the grave. So he figures he'll save the guy some time. He'll save him some trouble. So he goes over to tap him on the shoulder to tell him, like, I've tried everything, you know, maybe we should try something else, work together. And as soon as he tapped him on the shoulder, the guy, zip, zip, out. He got out of the grave. He's so scared. And I look at him, I say, Rabbi, that's funny? He says, Colin, don't you get it? He says, we're using such little of our potential.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Shalom, you want to say a few words?
Shalom, before you start, I just have to say goodbye because I'm leaving. I have to go.
Yaakov, say a few words.
I'm sorry. In one word, I'll tell you that. I'm sorry, Shalom. I'm just leaving. In one word, I decided this morning, in honor of the Yarseit, that I would look for a hesped for Rav Noach. And what I looked for, and I watched Eric's hesped in the yeshiva on the first Yarseit. All of you should take a quick look at that after this conference. It's a masterpiece. It's the first Yarseit. It's in yeshiva, and Eric speaks about Nadav and Avihu and about B'kroivai Ekodesh. And see what Rav Noach said about taking responsibility. It's something that I had heard and I had forgotten, and it is so impactful that there's nothing better you can do. I'm sure Shalom has some great things to say as well. But as far as I was concerned, I was reminded of that thought from Rav Noach about B'kroivai HaKodesh, and it is just, it will blow your mind, and it will change every way you look at taking responsibility.
Yaakov, can you send me the link if you have it, and then I'll send it out to everybody?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin, for that idea. Okay, Yaakov, thank you. Sorry you have to go. Appreciate you joining us.
I'm gonna send you the link. Yeah.
Shalom Schwartz.
Okay. What I thought I would share was an incident that happened during the just when there was a go-ahead to build the second building, and at that time, the second building was, of course, a two-story building with very, very thick walls, and it was being used actually for the Russian program, discovery seminars, and we arranged for a meeting with the head of the office of Moshe Safdie, Uri Shitrit, I think it was. And we were and Rav Noach and I walked around the building with him. And the purpose of the walk around was for Uri Shitrit to explain what the limits of the building of the new building would be. And we walked around the building site for about an hour. And Uri Shitrit was very clear. He said, look, you know this is a protected site. You know the laws of the old city. You understand the limitations of building in the old city of Yerushalayim. Basically, this is what you have to work with. We can shave a few centimeters off of this wall, perhaps, and maybe we can, rearrange this wall over here. But basically, you can renovate the building, but you can't expand it. And Rav Noach was listening and asking questions, and I was taking notes, and we're taking this very seriously. And of course, me from my upbringing in Canada, a law is a law, and that's how you look at things, and it's very disappointing. And at the moment we finished the meeting, and I was walking Rav Noach back to his office, he looked at me and he said, forget it. Forget everything you just saw, and forget about what he just said. We're building the building we need to build there. And it was one of those moments where it was so clear that Rav Noach lived in the world of what was possible. What was real to him was much more what could be than what was. When he looked at people, he saw what could be. When he saw that building, he saw what could be. When he saw the Jewish people, he saw what could be. He saw Israel, he saw what could be. And all of that was much, much more real than what was in front of his eyes and the limitations that seemed to be presented to him. And it was so obvious to him that building was going to be what was in his mind and what was in his vision, and nothing to do with Uri Shitrit's laws or the laws of I was like really shocked by his response, but it was such a powerful lesson for me for the rest of my life. And I know we all gain that from him, to be able to live with what's possible, to live with the reality of seeing that possibility as real, as more real than what's in front of us and the limitations of what's in front of us.
Thank you, Shaul. That was beautiful. Just get it out of your mind. I like that. It didn't happen. I can see that happening. Erwin, can I ask you to speak?
Hi. I will really take a different tack, which is I remember I had just spent a year in Europe. I came in with long hair. Many of you were there. I was pretty wild. Most of the people in the yeshiva didn't want me to, didn't think that they weren't going to let me stay. And I remember Zachariah Graineman, Zichron Levacha, said, and Rabbi Pliskin talked them into letting me stay. And I came just before Yom Tov, and I walked into the Beis Medrash, and I remember seeing Rav Noach. He was dancing, and I'd never seen anyone dance like that. Just his face was so alive and so full of life and energy, and it was as if he was just lifting off. And he put his big arm around me, and I said, like, what are you doing? And he said, Erwin, if you kick up your heels and joy and in laughter. If you kick up your heels in joy, your heart will follow. I wasn't sure if I agreed with him. I'm still not sure if I agree with him, but the passion and power that he had certainly spoke something to me and touched me in a very deep way. And it had, it had an impact on me, and I ended up staying. And I today I have 8 beautiful children, thank God, and 6 of them are living in Israel and doing wonderful things. And with a whole slew of grandchildren in Israel, and none of that would have happened if it wasn't for Rav Noach reaching out to me and touching me in the way he did. And I'm eternally grateful to him for changing my life and for giving me this amazing, beautiful family.
Thank you, Oren. That was beautiful. Really appreciate it. Shimon Appersdorf.
It's kind of emotional seeing all of these faces. I mean, one thing that is really striking me very much right now is gratitude to the Rosh Hashiva for you guys. And there are a lot of faces here that in different ways are very much intertwined with my own, my neshama and my life. And it's powerful. So it's very meaningful to see you guys. And I appreciate the Rosh Hashiva for enabling us to find one another, to find one another in the way that we have, and I greatly appreciate that for the Rosh Hashiva. Just a few little quick, just small personal things. One is my youngest son and I. He's 19. We've been learning 48 ways. We have a little kiddush together every Shabbos. We've been learning 48 ways on and off for the last year, and it's been just a phenomenal for us, and a bonding opportunity for us, and a way for him to get an appreciation for the Rosh Hashiva that it's hard to put it into words, but to be able to connect him to the Rosh Hashiva and to that very, real part of me has been just something very, very fantastic for me, for Boruch, my son, and I. It's been something exceptionally meaningful. Another quick, this Shabbos, we in the family Shabbos, we talked about the Rosh Hashiva, did some learning the Rosh Hashiva, and my daughter-in-law, I kind of gave a little history of, as best as I could, of Rav Noach from early on, and wanting to be as an Ish, and all of those stories that we're familiar with from, his earliest time of thinking of his ideas, what needed to be done, how he will be good. And my daughter-in-law was very taken by the fact that ideas which for the Rosh Hashiva at the time were just plain revolutionary. He was thinking and saying things that were just total chedushim in the Jewish world, and she looked at them and they were just as pashut as could be. But it just reinforced for me the truly revolutionary dimension of who he was, that today what is just taken for granted as the way one would look at many ways at the Jewish people and outreach and et cetera, and so many things that to her is just, that's just the bread and butter of how you would look at things. It's only because it was truly groundbreaking in thinking, and that thinking has how it has really shifted an internal dynamic in Klal Yisrael. Not that we don't have a long way to go, but that impact really, it as I was sharing things with her. Just 2 things. This is from my dad. My father loves to tell the following 2 little things. and it was probably around 19, I don't know, maybe 81 or something like that. The Rosh Yeshiva was in Cleveland for fundraising and stayed at my parents' house. And my mom, the first night he was there, made a big steak dinner. The family was all there, and the Rosh Yeshiva was over for dinner. And, I was a little bit nervous, and my mom said, Rabbi, before dinner at some point, she said, Rabbi, will you eat the dinner that I'm making tonight? And he said to her,
sorry to disturb. There's a lot of noise. If everyone could mute.
Okay, Shimon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
He said to my mom, will Sam eat the dinner? He always called me Sam. And my mom said, yes, Sam will eat the dinner. So he said, okay, if Sam will eat it, I'll eat it. So, and that just, it had such a, that just like was so powerful for my mom. Like he's, okay, if it's good for Sam, then, I'm in the family. If you're, if that's it, okay, it's fine. And then for dinner, I don't really remember this, but my dad always tells people that when dinner was over, he said, Rabbi Weinberg was very tired. He had traveled. And he said, after dinner, he said to me, why don't we go learn now? And we went out into the family room and we sat and learned for a while. And it was very, very touching to my father, that Rav Noach, who he saw as this great person, and he was here to fundraise, and he was exhausted from traveling, but that he wanted to just sit down and take, personal time and study with me. So in all of his greatness, those stories that my dad loves to tell about, the very just real, down-to-earth, real person that he was with people, with anybody, and how that realness touched people. And the last thing is my thanks to him. Right now, I'm working on a book, which is my first attempt to write something for the Frum community, and I think I want to try and say something to the Frum community, and the only reason I'm doing it is because of Noah, and I write about him in the beginning of the book that I'm working about, and it's a part of getting the job done, and that note that has never left me, that of thinking in terms of getting the job done. And it just, it accompanies me just all the time. And on one hand, I think that it's ridiculous for me to try and make the effort to say something to the Frum community, but I hear the Rosh Yeshiva always saying to me that just if it's part of what needs to be done, just get it done. And I thank him for that, literally to this moment.
Thank you, Shimon. Appreciate it. I remember when you came to Aish with your father, when you're checking it out. Thank you very much. Yehuda Pell from Cleveland. We don't see you, but we hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Okay.
And I just we have a couple. Moshe Pomensky just joined us. Moshe, did your daughter get married yet?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, tomorrow night.
Mazel tov, Vlad Nachas. Beautiful.
Amen. Thank you. Thanks
Okay,
so much.
welcome. Okay, Yehuda Pell.
So just a couple of things. I think some of us might have been there. There was a meeting of the fundraisers with Rav Noach. And the fundraisers were giving Rav Noach a little bit of a hard time. He didn't really know so much about fundraising. He wasn't so good at it. And Rav Noach paused and he looked and he said, you're right, I'm not really so good, but somehow I got all you guys here. so this comes to mind. Obviously, he had an absolutely, amazing appreciation of us. He really did. And, we need to build on that as much as we can in terms of how we deal with others. That's the koach that he sort of see the potential we've all got to work on and do. And just a couple of quick thoughts. I once asked Rav Noach, how did he become Rav Noach? So he paused for a few seconds. He gave I thought was, for me, an interesting answer. He said, I took Chazal's very seriously. I took the words of Chazal very seriously. That's, at the time, what he attributed to his becoming Rav Noach. And another time I asked him, what is the most chashuv of midos? And his answer was loyalty. And I have kept that with me, always, and obviously in the Torah Satov and dealing with people, that aspect of loyalty, it's fundamental to everything. And I echo Erwin's words. Thank God, have a wonderful mishpacha, and none of that would have happened without Rav Noach. My life is all because of Rav Noach. That's what it comes down to. And it's just, I want to close by saying it's such a pleasure to see everybody, and it really kudos to you, Boruch, for putting this together. It's really, really a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Huda. Beautiful. The chorus of Tov, loyalty. I love it. I love it. Heskel Stelzer. Hesky. Hezi.
Hi, Rabbi. Hi, everyone. I wasn't prepared to speak, but the two or three most memorable moments that stick with me from Rav Noach is one of them was, I think it was Erev Yom Kippur, coming to Beis Midrash, and just there's a lot of tension, with 26 hours of no eating ahead of us, and the nervousness of Tshuva Yom Kippur, and Rav Noach just shook his head off, looked at us, and said, "You guys have it all wrong." And that strong feeling of how he was trying to convey, that we're about to meet our loving Father, and it's a special gift that Yom Kippur is. It's really stuck with me in a very vivid way for many years. Just that, that's not in his head, not the way he nodded, the way we got it all wrong, just that true feeling of what the feeling of life is supposed to be, how we're supposed to, and it comes to me very often when I feel, I'm not centered, I'm not, it's not quite the way it's supposed to be, the taste of the Avodas Hashem, the taste of life, and it stayed with me very much, that, just those couple seconds of message that he felt, that wrong energy in the Beis Midrash, and what he was trying to portray in his way, what was a more correct way to relate and to taste and to feel life and Hashem and Yom Kippur, etc. The other very memorable moment I think I had with Rav Noach was, there's two more, one was when I got engaged. Everyone probably had the same, and he'd asked me, he gave me a good smack on my face and said, now you remember, now you know that Hashem loves you, just remember it. Number two. And number three was, once he, in his office, he says, what's wrong with you, Cheskes? You just, how do you say it? Sorry. Something to the extent, like, you still, the problem with you, Chezk, is you think it's still you. You think, it's still about you doing it. It's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Chesky.
Thank you, Chesky.
Mitch Mandel by audio.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Boruch, for organizing, and sorry, my camera's not working, but it's great to see everybody. I'm sitting here listening to everybody, and I was thinking, okay, what a great story, what great incident, what great. And the first thing, I don't know why it popped into my head, but the first thing that popped into my head was my first Purim at Aish. And I got to Aish in January of '76. So I guess I was there, it was maybe 5 or 6 weeks. And and we had a Suda in Kiryat Sanz. There was a hall, I think it was across the street from where the Rosh Yeshiva's apartment was. There was some kind of hall there. And I remember I'm sitting there, and the guys are some skits and this and that. But at one point, I looked around the room, and there was guys lying on the floor, lying on the tables. And Rav Noach is standing on a chair at the head of the room. He's got a strimal on, and he's got a lulav in his hand. And he's yelling and screaming, clarity or death, clarity or death. What are you guys living for? And I'm looking around the room, and I really didn't drink that much. I was unfamiliar with the Purim festivities. And I'm looking at the room, and there's guys that are, they're barfing here and they're collapsing there. And Rav Noach, I don't know how much he drank, but I think he drank much more than any guy drank there. And he was just the unbelievable consistency of whatever state of mind he was in. It didn't matter. He was totally hooked into the message. So that's just an image that resonates with me to this day. I can still see the Rosh Yeshiva standing there yelling out clarity or death. The other thing is, just one more thing is that, and I guess everybody feels this way, but I know that there's so many challenges that we all face in terms of personal life and in terms of our avoda. And oh boy, I miss the Rosh Yeshiva so much, because it was just that guddle that you could call the Rosh Yeshiva, and you had confidence you're going to get a direction that's totally emistic and totally real, and you had that confidence, and not to have that to go to is it's a big vacuum. But I'll say one more thing in terms of Hakar Satov, which echoes what everybody's saying in terms of course, our family. But I look at my own kids, and I look at Alicia, who spent time in Aisha Torah with Rosh Yeshiva, and then Gabrielle, who was actually his shamish for a couple of years when he replaced Shimmy Kaufman. Shimmy Kaufman used to walk him from the parking lot to the building. So when my Gabrielle got there, Shimmy kind of handed that over to Gabrielle. So I look at those two boys. I mean, all three of my boys are in Kiruv. Alicia's got an Ace shul that he's running here, and Gavri is a managing director of NCSY in Toronto. And I have no doubt that their dedication to Am Yisrael is because of that they had a relationship with the Rosh Yeshiva.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Thank you. Moshe Pomensky, would you like to say a few words?
I wasn't expecting to, but while I was listening to everyone, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
There were two things that happened with Rav Noach that left an impression on me. There were many things, but two things came to mind. One is, after being away from Aish for a lot of years, I came back and went to the Rosh Yeshiva's office to meet him with my two boys. And he took my boys, he looked at them, he said, please tell me the Sheish Mitzvahs Timidius. And neither of them could tell him. And he looked at me with such disappointment, and it shook me that it was so much that Rav Noach felt it was a loss that I didn't do that to my boys, and realize how seriously the Rosh Yeshiva took living with Hashem, and it really made an impression on me from that point onwards in terms of the chinuch of my kids and chinuch of myself. And a second thing that happened when I first started fundraising, I was going to Florida, and if Coleman's on the call, he probably wouldn't even know the person. I just started fundraising, and I was going back for a trip, and Rav Noach said to me, Moshe, I want you to ask this guy, I want you to ask him for $1 million. I said, Rebbe, I don't even know if he has $1 million. He said, promise me you're going to ask for $1 million. I go, but it's crazy. I think I'd have a much easier chance of getting $15,000. How can I ask for $1 million? I don't even know if he has $1 million. He said, promise me. I said, Rebbe, why do I have to promise you? He said, because if you don't promise me, you're not going to do it. So I said, I promise you. And I'll tell you, I was in terror walking into this meeting, but it changed my life. I got $100,000 from him, where I would have only gotten $10,000. But it wasn't the money. It just changed my vision. And I think that was what Rav Noach did. Wherever he saw us, he tried to raise our vision. And I agree with every one of you. We owe our lives to Rav Noach, and I miss him.
Thank you, Moshe. Appreciate it. When I was in Toronto, my son and Mitch's son were in the back seat, and we were picking up Rav Noach, and they were in the back seat. Alicia, David, Alicia, he's going to ask us, do we know the Sheish Mitzvahs? We got to review. And Rav Noach did. Eliezer, we'd like to say, Evan, Eliezer, we'd like to say a few words. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Now can you hear me?
I hear you now. Perfect. Great.
Yeah, actually, for some whatever reason, I'm doing it from my phone, so fine. First again, I want to echo what everyone's saying, how much Karsa told me after Rosh Hashiva, that my life would be nothing of what it is right now if I hadn't met Rosh Hashiva and been more connected. And Rosh Hashiva, and maybe just correct me, I think it was 5 yeshivas and 4 organizations, but you always used to tell me every time, and I think because you knew who I was, that they all fail, and you got to keep trying. You've got to just keep trying all the time, because that's how you become successful, by just keep trying all the time. And I used to think about the Rosh Hashiva would come. He always used to say, I was on the boat going to ask Rosh Hashiva, going to ask the Chazon Ish if I should open up Eish Torah, and then I heard while I'm on the boat that Chazon Ish passed away, and it just used to strike me sometimes that here he's putting all his eggs into this. I got to find out the answer, and then all of a sudden the answer is impossible to find out, and Rosh Hashiva just moved ahead, doing what he felt was right. And as he might have said to many of us, he says, one time he said to me, and that's why I appreciate you said Evan instead of Eliezer, but he said to me, Evan, he says, I love you, Evan. And I felt that he had opened up in me, and a lot of people have said that to me before, but it didn't register. And he had opened up like a wellspring in me that just sort of like started giving out. And the next day at work, I was working with a guy doing some job training, helping him, and I said to him, Yoel, I love you. And he got like nervous. He said, like, you mean you love me like every other Jew? I said, no, I love you because you're so beautiful. And they really Rosh Hashiva sort of connected me, and always asking, 6 constant mitzvahs and the steps to Amunah, and noise, you don't get it. You really don't get it, do you? Come on, they've got to keep working. And it was just good to be loved like a father. That's how I served Noach. And one last thing, when I would be with Rosh Hashiva and he would be talking to me, he would be totally connected to me. And then all of a sudden he'd start talking, finish with me, talk to someone else. I would feel like this void because he'd be totally connected to the next guy. And I would feel like, what happened to me? And I just learned the idea of being totally connected, and then you move on and you are totally connected to someone else. So it's really, I don't know, I look at my kids, I look at everything I have, and I wouldn't have anything without Rosh Hashiva. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eliezer. You guys might not know it, but Eliezer used to take off work and pick up Rav Noach every time he came to the States, which was often. So he spent a lot of time with Rav Noach, which was great.
Yes, that was amazing. I just want to say one thing, how I got that job a little bit, because this is really, they're just like the Rosh Yeshiva, and very uncharacteristic of me, but I decided one day I'm going to pick up the Rosh Yeshiva. No, nobody told me to go. Maybe I can pick him up. And Yaakov Solomon was there. And Yaakov Shabbat was picking up Rav Noach. But the Rav Noach's train was delayed by hours. And Yaakov couldn't stay anymore. So he finally said, okay, so fine, you take him. You know? And I didn't take over right away, but that was the beginning of just doing something. Just reaching out and taking a little control of my own and just saying, I'm going to pick up the Rosh Yeshiva. Just see what happens. Okay, Scott. Thanks, Baruch. Thanks for everything. Thanks.
Ari Pomensky, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Baruch.
You're welcome.
I appreciate this. It's very meaningful. I just, Aish Torah, my kids, I talked to my kids. I had a couple sons who went through Aish. Not went through Aish. They worked at Aish, or they were at Aish for a little while over the last few years. And it's a very different place than when we were there. And I was trying to describe to my kids what Aish was like in the early 80s, mid 80s. And it was just how nutty it was and how intense it was. And just how involved Rav Noach was in all of our lives. And everyone there, you can see now, these are all the old timers. Everyone there was such a strong type A personality that would have succeeded pretty much in any area of life. And Rav Noach attracted the people to accomplish in ways that they just pushed people to accomplish more than they may have thought that they could at such a young age. And everyone is fantastic. Everyone's spectacular because of what Rav Noach did, what he taught us. But I was zoche in a weird kind of way to the little snippets that I had of Rav Noach's life after I left Israel. Turned out none of it was work-oriented. It was all very personal-oriented, and weirdly enough, personal for Rav Noach on Rav Noach's side. So little things like when I happened to be in New York teaching seminar, and he was sitting Shiva, and I went to Menachem Avil, and no one was there. And so I sat down. I ended up having like 3 hours of Rav Noach telling me about his family and telling me about his life. Nothing to do with Kiruv, nothing to do with just the personal man who Rav Noach was. Another example was when he came to Toronto and he had heart surgery, and his family was sitting with him around the clock. And I think 24 or 48 hours after the surgery, I came in to say, to say hi to Rav Noach. And the family was so happy to see me because they could get out and that a trusted Aish, family member who could sit with Rav Noach. And they left for the afternoon or whatever it is. And they said, "You'll be okay?" I go, "Yeah." And Rav Noach was drugged. So his mind wasn't that sharp, Rav Noach. It was just this warm, loving person came out. And I spent 3 or 4 hours with drugged Rav Noach. And it was amazing. It was just beautiful to see the man behind the beard, And throughout my life, I got the chance to see the man behind the beard. And it really is all related to one story that when I was a bacher in yeshiva, and I remember Rav Noach used to travel, there was a certain time where he traveled so much because the yeshiva was in trouble, and he would be gone for weeks on end sometimes. He was in so much debt. The yeshiva was in so much debt. And I remember I was walking through the parking lot in the old city, and a cab came, and Rav Noach gets out of the cab, and I ran over to him to greet him and said, "Rabbi, can I walk you to your office?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "How was the trip?" He was gone 3 weeks. I said, "How was this trip? How'd it go?" And he was so enthusiastic, and he said, "Oh, it was fantastic. You can't believe it. It was amazing. Wow, what an opportunity. It was incredible." I'm like, "Wow, how much money did you raise?" He said, "Funnily enough, this was the only trip I've never didn't raise a dime, ever." So what's great about that is what's so good. And he stopped and he turned to me and he grabbed me and he said, Aryeh, he said, what could be better than being a soldier in Hashem's army? You tell me. It comes, it'll come. Accomplishment happens. It doesn't happen. That's Hashem's gift. It'll happen or it doesn't happen. He says, but what would you rather be doing with your life? Would you like playing golf? You want to run a business? Like, what would you rather be doing with your life? He said, I get an opportunity to be a general in Hashem's army. He said, why in the world would this trip be anything other than great? And that touched me. That moved me a lot because Aish was, at that time, was extremely accomplishment oriented, extremely accomplishment driven. And people were spending tremendous amount of the time, effort, and energy on what have you done? What have we accomplished? Where have we gone? What have you accomplished? Which Rav Noach obviously lived and dreamt, lived in that because that was who he was as a person with such a great sight. But behind the beard, it was just I'm just an Eved Hashem. It's all it is. All that other stuff is what it is. It's a gift. It'll happen or it won't. But the only thing we have is right now, in this moment, the opportunity to be an Eved Hashem, to really have a connection to Hashem in whatever you're doing. And that's very moving. That stayed with me forever. And I too, as my brother said, I too miss Rav Noach very, very much. More now, funnily enough, than ever. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aryeh. Appreciate it. We have one more, and then we're going to sign off. Chaim Feld from Cleveland. But before Chaim, you speak, Yehuda, I just want to ask you, I didn't ask you before, if you just think for a minute, I'd like to end it maybe with a tefillah. Okay, Yehuda? Chaim Feld, you're on.
Okay. Couple things. Hey, keep saying you're unmuted. Stop. I was teaching at Kent State in Kent, Ohio, and there was Israeli with a long ponytail, and he was speaking there, and I started speaking to him, and he heard I was from Aish, and he said, oh, this was a guy from Sderot. I forgot his name. He was a photojournalist. He said, oh, Rav Noach gave me money, seed money, to start what I'm doing. I was like, here I am in Kent, Ohio, and Rav Noach has touched this person's life who's affecting other people's lives. It was unbelievable. The next thing is the last time my wife got to speak to Rav Noach, she was running after him and said, Rav Noach, please give me a bracha. And so he turned around and he said to her, my bracha to you is you should know Hashem loves you, dummy. And it went right into her neshama, and it really changed her life. Like, it was so classic Rav Noach. But like everyone said, the main thing is I just want to have express my Karsa Tov. Rav Noach, our lives, our kids, and Baruch Hashem, I have 2 grandchildren with the name Noach. So I just owe Rav Noach everything.
Thank you, Chaim. Yehuda, maybe you can finish us off here with a tefillah and a bracha. Are you there, Yehuda?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
First of all, I want to thank everyone again. I don't know how to express it in words. It's like really, really missing my father. If we say tefillah, the first thing that comes up to my mind is really my father's tefillah. My father's tefillah, saying to Hashem, I know you want it. I know you want it better than me. I know you could do it better than me. but please make it that we care enough. Care enough. It's going to hurt us enough. We're going to feel his pain with his children that's so far away from him, but wants him so close. And if we feel that pain, Hashem is going to give us the success of uniting, first of all, our people and getting to all these souls. So I think that that's the prayer and that's the bracha. And maybe some people have heard it from me, but I love to quote my father that he was asked to welcome a group, Beisha Torah, and the one that was introducing him, so they said, please welcome Rabbi Noach Weinberg, the visionary of this organization. And my father so sweetly comes up there probably and tells the students, just imagine him with that smile. He says, you know, they called me a visionary. I don't call myself a dreamer. He says, in fact, if you think about it, the Jewish people were a nation of dreamers. We're a nation of dreamers. We dream about Jerusalem. We dream about the good coming and happening. He says 50 years ago to be in Jerusalem, to drive like I'm driving now in Jerusalem, to go out to the Kotel, to have a building across to the Kotel 50 years ago was a dream of many, many, many years. Thousands of people that would cry and say next year in Jerusalem. And he says, we're a nation of dreamers. Don't forget it. We do it well, we dream. And he was welcoming that group there, and he says, I'm welcoming you here to come and dream with us. And I want to tell it to all of us, don't stop dreaming. Don't stop dreaming about Eshet Torah. Don't stop dreaming about your family. Don't stop dreaming about your community. Hashem is going to help us, and we're going to do a lot of big things.
Okay. Thank you, Yehuda. So I want to thank everybody for joining, people that are here and who are not here. It was really great to have you on this Zoom video call.
Boruch, tell your story. Tell the story about when you asked Rav Noach for advice.
No, another time. And
everybody wants to hear it, really.
I gotta run.
Okay, and Rosh Hashiva Rav Noach should have an aliyah for his neshama. Yeah. We all should take something away, something small, something big. We really should be mekayim something to do in the schus of Rav Noach. And I always wish Rav Noach was here now to help us, but he's not, but he is. No. And Hashem should bench all of us. Call Yisrael. Thank you all.
Amen. Thank you, Boruch. Take care. Thank you.
God, thanks.
Well, okay. It's 25-year anniversary of Eshet Torah. So they asked me if I'll come back, right? So I came back, and they didn't ask me to speak. They didn't ask me to talk about anything. They asked me if I could please introduce Rav Noach in 15 seconds. So I ignored them. But anyway, when I got up there, I said, you know, I was one of the first 5 students of Aish, came out here, our first branch. He says, at that point, you know, what was it, 25, whatever it was, number of years ago, he says, who would have thought that we'd have gone from 5 students to branches around the world? Who would have thought that we've affected hundreds of thousands? We've probably affected 1 million people now. And who would have thought that we would be a household name? It amazes me to this day when I mention Eshet Torah and people actually know it. Because I've spent 45 years explaining to people, Eish HaTorah. Eish means fire. Anyway, and now people say, oh, what a big, powerful organization. I said, And here's Rav Noach. So Rav Noach gets up there. He says, look at me. He looks at me and goes, what do you mean who would have thought? He says, I knew.
Thank you, Coleman. That was really great. It was very emotional for a lot of us, very heavy and very good and refreshing to relive and reignite some of the vision and the growth and lessons that we learned from our Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Noach Weinberg. If you like this, please share it. Check out my website, BoruchRabinowitz.com.